Andy Johnson, Minnesota State University, looking at emotions, motivation, learning to read. This is part 3, emotional influences on cognitive functioning. We emote and think from the same brain. It's silly to think that one would not affect the other. Our neural systems that supported thinking were developed to solve problems based on these emotions. Anger, what could we do to resolve the anger? Surprise, fear, how can we solve that problem so that we experience more happiness or so we do not experience disgust? Emotions affect perception, attention, and memory. How does it affect perception? Classic experiment, 10 words presented rapidly to students. They were asked to recall them. Those are the 10 words for 1 second. The other 10 words from 1 second. And of course, the words that they attended to, boop, or that they perceived, they tended to perceive the ones that had high emotional content, in this case, fear. The same thing with emotions and attention. They did eye tracking studies, and your eyes always gravitated towards the face that created the emotion of fear or surprise. Emotions affect that which you attend to. Emotions affect memory. It's called flashbulb memories, things that have high emotional impact we tend to remember a lot. Now, taking a look at stress, stress is a physiological response or changes that occur in response to a threat, either real or perceived, so that the organism can achieve homeostasis, meaning that we don't want to be in this state of fight or flight, hyperarousal, but we need to eventually respond to that threat and bring us back down. So it's a psychological and physiological change that occurs in response to a threat. We want to fight or flight, again, so that the organism can achieve homeostasis. That's the evolutionary response to it. However, if we are in stress for prolonged periods of time, this creates this post-traumatic stress disorder, that you become hyper-aroused for so long that you can't turn the system down. You can't regulate. You're in a state of dysregulation. And this creates an increased risk of physical and mental health problems, and you see all these sorts of things that occur with repeated and long-term stress and post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, a little stress is good. It can enhance performance, but too much can impede performance. That's why in my class I need a little stress. We need to have exams and stuff, so you're kind of stressful. But if I have too much, you become overwhelmed. So we need to find this optimal amount of stress. A little stress is good. Too much stress is not. Mood and memory. Our mood is congruent to our memory. When we are in a sad mood, the nodes to sadness, we remember sad things. When we're in a happy mood, we remember happy things. Now, our mood influences our memory. They've done studies on this. Actually, if you smoke marijuana when you study, to perform at optimal levels, you want to have smoked marijuana then when you take the test. Our mood is influenced by our memory and congruent to our memory. Learning and decision making. Learning from emotional experience is necessary for the organism's survival and well-being. And again, that's how the species survived. However, when we pair learning with negative or emotional experiences, we create stress. And think of our children, especially with learning disorders. You know, what do they pair school with? It is paired with, they are conditioned to respond in an anxious way because they've experienced failure. What fires together becomes wired together. What wires together, we associate. If you experience something over and over again, like school and failure, that becomes paired with it, and you associate with failure. I just did a bad job of explaining that, sorry. Decision making is heavily influenced by emotional and other factors that don't follow the rules of logic. We like to think we're logical decision makers, but no, our emotions. Again, we think, we reason, we emote with the same brain. It's silly to think that one does not affect another. And then we have both bottom-up and top-down responses to emotions. An emotional response is when we see something fearful or anger or surprise. This initial reaction is to respond to it, and that we do that for the survival of the species again. But then the high road is a couple seconds later, it processes through the higher regions, and we come down and we can respond to it in a more thoughtful way. All right, that is the end of part 3. The last part will be looking at resilience.